There's the attraction side, and then there's the retention side. And it's super important that we deliver that. We also know that in that first 60 days, there's only two real answers to how somebody feels. This is either the greatest decision I ever made or holy crap, what did I do? We're not just bringing words and presentations to people. We're actually trying to make sure that they utilize the products, that they experience the transparency and the fairness firsthand. They experience the access to you firsthand. I mean, we're using these products, we're doing these things.
I'm here today with Ty Kern, AWM's Chief Strategy Officer and industry veteran. We're excited to hear what Ty has to say about the business in general and AWM. Ty, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. My pleasure.
Yeah. So you've been in the business for quite some time, but I want to know what originally drew you to the mortgage business.
So it's a funny story. I'll make it a brief one because it's been 33 years now. But literally, I was going to business school with a guy, and his older brother started to become a mortgage broker. And this guy was not the brightest guy I ever knew. And he came in one day and said his older brother had made $200,000 the year before. And I'm like, if that guy can make $200,000, I think I might be able to do okay in that.
Yeah.
I will tell you what drew me to the business was definitely financial, but what's allowed me to stay or make me want to stay in the business is serving the other people.
Yeah. And obviously over that time, you've seen a lot of change.
Tons.
And what would you say in your mind, what has been one of the biggest evolutions that you've witnessed in the business so far?
Well, I mean, there's so many, and the one constant in any business has changed, but especially this one. I mean, the peaks and valleys are massive. Being able to survive all of them and, manage your income through those ups and downs for sure. But without a doubt, the last 4 years, the biggest contraction period ever, the longest contraction period ever, coming after 2 years of our best 2 years ever. I think that's a shock that is not soon going to be forgotten. And I don't think we're out of it. I don't think the market's going to react the way it used to. I don't know if we're going to get these fits and tantrums of 18, 24 months. I think it's going to be tough sledding, and we're going to have to do more and lead more and be more involved and show up for our people.
Yeah. I mean, in your role, Chief Strategy Officer, do you see, in terms of the changes that are upcoming, is it more in the way that we serve our clients, or is it more in the way that we operate the business from a back office perspective?
I think both. I think it's really more in the way we serve our team, our people within the company. If we serve our people well, they will serve their clients well, which is a secondary and tertiary clients for us, whether that's the borrower or a real estate agent or a builder. But I think it all has to change. And I also think that we're heading towards a times where, let's face it, over the 30-something years you and I have been doing this, manufacturing hasn't really changed that much. Tools in the front end have changed, tools in the back end have changed, but I think we are headed for a manufacturing revolution at some point, which I think does free up salespeople and branch side operations people to do their jobs differently and perhaps be more dynamic out in the field.
Yeah. And I think overall, right, how do we stay, again, 30 some odd years in the business, how are you staying passionate? How are you maintaining that fire and drive for the business?
Well, the mortgage business has been so good to me, and the people within the mortgage business has been so good to me. It's hard to imagine doing anything else really. And it changes enough to where, I mean, give me even 3 or 4 months that stay the same in this business. I mean, there's always a new challenge every day. But really serving the needs of the other human beings that work in our organization and helping them get where they need to go is really what gets me out of bed in the morning. Of course, serving you and the leadership team as well, but I know you believe the same way. You sort of turn the organization upside down, and we're really on the bottom serving everybody else, right?
Yeah.
And you and I found that commonality in the very first conversation. I think that's essentially why we're here.
Yeah, well, that's actually leads me to my next question.
Yeah.
So you joined AWM about a year ago now from a very large, one of the largest mortgage banking operations in the country. What made you decide to join AWM?
I think it starts always with you, Chris, leadership. I think people leave and stay at organizations for 2 reasons. There might be all kinds of buffering reasons or things that they talk about, but really people stay for leadership and they leave for the lack of leadership, and they stay for significance or they'll leave for the lack of significance. I think the larger companies out there have a hard time really leading their people and also making them feel significant within the process. And I think, you know, to be fair, you probably can't feel too significant with 15,000 loan officers, right?
Good
So
point.
yeah, at the end of the day, I've always thrived in a situation where we were, let's just say small to mid-sized mortgage bank, and we're growing and doing things and helping our people coming up, a bigger player, but maybe let's just call that $5 to $6 billion range has always been like a sweet spot for me, and I think the industry, and you and I also, had a lot of talks about that, and that's
Yeah.
helping you and AWM bridge that gap is awesome.
Now, obviously, in the recruitment process, I was recruiting you, but during that process with any company, you hear a lot of things, right? It's some true, some not true, right? Yeah,
Yeah,
and it's
of course.
we'll get into that a little bit later, but ultimately, what was it? At what point did you realize, hey, this, was it a conversation? Was it something that happened during your discovery process here at AWM where you felt like, hey, this is the right culture fit for me?
Yeah, it's funny. I gave you my, manifesto of questions about the platform, which we've joked about several times. And those things are important for me to be able to represent what the company is and how the platform works. There's two sides of the mortgage business. There's the people side, and there's how you do loans, right? Um, what clicked for me? I mean, all the boxes were checked. We can do loans, and if you're in the business right now, I'm sure every company can do loans and do them effectively at this point. But really, it's the culture and the fact that we're serving our people here in a way that's different than where everywhere else, what everyone else is doing. And our conversations in and around fairness and transparency, from P&L to pricing and those kinds of things, I think it's missing in our industry. I mean, it really is. And I know that because the 250 people or branches that I've spoken to in the last year about coming here, when we show them the raw price or we show them how simple our P&L is, and this is exactly what we make on this loan, this is the exact fees you're going to be charged. They can't even come to the table with a relative, even any sort of discernment or confidence that they even have those numbers for their own company. So that trust is built right in the first week. They're like, wait a minute, I don't even know you. I don't know AWM, but you're already showing me exactly how you make money and what you make and exactly how your pricing works. I think that's big for us.
Yeah. How important was your ability to make an impact here? Coming from a large organization, you could add volume there, and yeah, I mean, yeah.
Oh, this was new for me. I'm relatively well known for moving large groups, big chunks of production. And I came here with me in my briefcase and said, I'm going to try this. I mean, the industry had been pretty beat up for 3 or 4 years. It was important for me to come here, understand what you wanted to accomplish and the other leaders wanted to accomplish here at AWM, and then to help you guys begin to do it. Um, and I'm glad of the journey. I think I got started probably a little slower than I would like to have, but I feel like I really get what it is we're trying to do, and I feel like the way I see AWM and the value proposition for AWM for the people that are here and the people that we're talking to about supporting their families here, I think I have a clear vision that might be different than someone who's been here for 10 or 15 years.
Sure. Well, I think that's what you bring to the table. I say this all the time. I think it's important for any organization, especially one like ours, where there is a lot of tenure. People are here for a long time at the highest level. And I think it's important to bring in new influences, new ideas, thought processes. And I know you've done that. And on the recruiting side, you've added some influences for in terms of your own vision. Maybe you can share a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, once again, I think there's things that we do differently than everyone else does them. Someone could argue better or worse, but I personally like different. I think we have a unique leader in you, really, really rare in this business. The humility, the lack of ego, the willing to step in, basically a loan officer at heart. I think that's huge. The transparency and fairness I already spoke about. I think from there, though, you really get into a situation where products, because of your background and what you've done, making sure loan officers don't have to say no. We've never had a contracted period of 4 years. If you were to talk to me 5 years ago and said, hey, Ty, you should have a bunch of non-QM and hard money and,
Yeah.
reverses and all these things, I'd say you're crazy. Agency is 97% of the business. Get over yourself. But it's a real thing now. I mean, you've got to have those products. I think, for LO to drag in a deal now. They don't have really any choice in what people bring them, and not be able to do it is demoralizing. So that's another big thing. I also think branding, understanding that it's name on the back of the jersey rather than the front, that matters. And when we hire somebody, you know, John Smith, people are going to do business with John Smith. We're in a supportive role to make them look as good as we can possibly make them look, and make sure that they're fulfilling all their promises out on the street and they're using those products that we have. That's another thing I think we do. We don't just talk about products here. We actually support the products, and we actually deliver. They're not presentation value things. They're actual things that people are closing and utilizing to make their business better and do more deals every year. And I think that's important.
Yeah, I agree, and that's been a real big push for us over time developing those products and programs. So I want to touch a little bit about on your overall experience. So you've worked at some very large national lenders, and I think you're uniquely qualified to give some perspective on what that looks like. So if I'm considering right now, hey, I'm working for one of the top 10 mortgage bankers in the country. Maybe I feel a little bit out of place, disenchanted for whatever the reason may be. Why should I consider going to a mid-size, which would AWM, I would consider us that? Why should I make that? Why should I consider making that move?
I think I've competed against, or we have recruited loan officers from every major company in the country. I won't name them by name. I'll just tell you that battle gets won, right? The transparency and fairness piece. No one understands how their rate sheet's created in any of those companies, and no one feels significant. Even if they feel led, it's just not something that they can tangibly put their hand on. I also think, listen, when you have 15,000 LOs or 10,000 LOs or 5,000 LOs, each LO is an entrepreneur. There's inherent internal, sort of competition there. To me, if you and I were going to open a pizza parlor, and we said we're going to sell large pizzas for $15, we both want to know what's the labor involved in that? What does the cheese cost? What does the tomatoes cost? What's the base cost of this thing that arrive at $15? Nobody in mortgage, especially a large company, can answer that question, how their rate sheet is built, how their company makes money, so they can fit, especially if you're a leader, like a branch leader or an area leader with P&L responsibility. How do you know how to set your margin, or where you're at, or where your competitive position is in the market if you don't understand how it was built?
Yep. Do you see us serving and when I say clients, I think you and I both agree our clients are our loan officers.
100%.
And the people that, drive the production. How do you see us serving them differently than a large mortgage banker?
Well, first of all, on every level, our instant value calls, some of the things that we do just to try to add value to someone's day, is something they can use right that day to make a difference. We have a recent, one where we talked about Poly and what to do in there. If you had a little rate dip, we got a rate dip a week later, had the biggest lock day ever in the company, right? I think the initiative with our chief performance officer that was just announced with Shivani, well, first of all, the whole Dinger family is amazing. But at the end of the day, she's passionate, and she's launching a performance coaching role here. And she's taking it from, rather than tasking and coaching and how do I do more business, which I'm sure there'll be parts of that there. I think she cares about the mental health of our people and not burning them out, and having them do their business in maybe a better way that helps them also be good mothers and fathers and husbands and wives and, all those things. And I mean, that's a caring approach that, once again, leadership and significance. I mean, it takes a lot for people to really sink in. If you don't feel significant here, when you launch even a position like that, I'd be surprised.
Yeah. I always felt like in our size and shape, we were nimble. We could make decisions quickly. We could react to market conditions. We can react to a particular loan officer, the needs of a particular loan officer and branch when we need to. How have you seen that different here at AWM?
Oh, there's no question. I mean, once we have somebody tucked in, especially, I mean, all the people here, there's no silos, right? There's no siloed thinking. You can get a hold of one of 4 or 5 people that could help you with your issue. No one's saying, hey, go here, go there. That's hard to do. It could be a strength and a weakness, right? We allow a lot of customization here. We even encourage it. At first, you and I had a lot of conversations about that strategically. I don't think I would change it. I think we just have to figure out a way to to make sure maybe instead of, if we had 100 branches, maybe not 100 flavors, but maybe 30, right? I think there's little things that you can do, but to still, once again, every single LO is an entrepreneur, every single branch manager is an entrepreneur, and I think catering to those needs is good. The nimbleness part, I think, comes in the fact of catering to those needs. When you come into somewhere and it says it's so-and-so way, and that way doesn't facilitate more business for that particular person, then I don't know. Doesn't sound like a good fit to me.
Yeah, you sort of walled them off at that point.
100%.
And I think that's how people, as I use the word disenchanted, that's probably a great start to that.
Oh, for sure.
Understanding that you're not heard. People don't care about what you need as a business owner, right? Essentially, as an entrepreneur in this business. One of our mantras, and we've started going down this road here, but proof over promise.
Yeah.
And I don't love using buzzwords all the time, but I really feel that this is something that's important, and I feel like we deliver on that. What does that saying, that term, mean to you, and really, how do you bring that to life in your role as the chief strategy officer?
All right, my deck that we created together, it says AWM pops on the top, right? So proof over promise. Look, you and I've talked about this too. I think it's important to deliver on the things that we say we can do in a recruiting meeting. There's the attraction side, and then there's the retention side, right? And it's super important that we deliver that. We also know that in that first 60 days, there's only two real answers to how somebody feels, and there's very little gray in between, which is, this is either the greatest decision I ever made, or holy crap, what did I do? And I think we do a good job. We're not perfect, but I think we do a good job of it. And we're going to continue to evolve there. I could also say the delivery on the products does the same thing. I think the delivery on the transparency and fairness, having that agreement, the transparency and fairness agreement, we're not just bringing words and presentations to people and then putting them in and saying, see ya. We're actually trying to make sure that they utilize the products, that they experience the transparency and the fairness firsthand. They experience the access to you firsthand. We're using these products. We're doing these things. The branding. the DBAs that operate here, the team names that operate here. I think it's something that we not only support, but we encourage. That's the proof over promise. We're living this. It's not a sales slogan.
I think you're absolutely right. And it's not just, I've said this in some of my social media before, it's not just, on a coffee mug or something you put on a sweatshirt, right? It has to be truly important to leadership. I call them my campaign promises. When I'm sitting across the table from a recruit and we're talking about, hey, these are the things that we're going to do to help you succeed at AWM. There's a couple things that are very important to me. Number one, I love giving examples. I love, you'll see me do that all the time. Let me tell you, so here's something that we do, but let me give you an example of us actually doing that and delivering on those promises. And I think you've definitely embraced that, right? And I think you see the ability to actually deliver, and that probably, I'm hoping, gives you confidence as you enter these conversations.
Listen, I think it allows me in particular to have different conversations than anybody else that's trying to attract people to come to work for their company. I can have a completely different conversation than any other person in my position at any other company. And like I said, we could argue about whether it's better, but I like being different, and I like the things that we stand for, and what makes us different are all things that I think are super important to people in a mortgage business in 2025 and beyond.
You use transparency a lot, and we do talk a lot about that here at AWM. How do you make that real in your practice with your team? How does that come forward for you?
For me, it starts with just being real with the fact of what our raw pricing is. Right. This is our price with no profit in it for anybody. And then this is what we need to make on a conventional loan. This is what we need to make on a jumbo loan. This is what we need to make on a non-QM loan. And going through that, and we have our 895, of course. When you take a look at a P&L in an industry, or somebody asking them, if you even ask anybody, especially a larger company, what does their company charge them? They have no idea. And there's, the P&Ls are 1,100 lines, 400 lines, 500 lines. We have the 50-line P&L. We absolutely charge only the things we talk about. There's no tech fees. There's no hidden charges and stuff in there. And I think starting with once again, that raw price, building the margin right in front of their eyes on what we need to make to operate as a company and provide the services that we do. Um, and then allowing them to put their branch margin in, there's immediately just sort of, at least with me, there's been a sort of a sigh of relief. Like, thank God somebody's finally gonna let me in on my own business and let me try and do something here. And if you take a look at the branches we brought in the last year, they're all losing, $300-400 a loan maybe, and they're grinding through these horrible conversations every quarter. And they're here now making $20,000-30,000 a month on the P&L, and nothing changed. It's the exact same people, exact same everything, but that transparency and then the fairness comes in. I mean, we cover the corporate side or the company side of the benefits. We help them on the recruiting side by taking down some of the sign-on bonuses and those kinds of things. And that's the difference between someone feeling like they're doing a good job and they're making a difference and that they have a shot at winning in this business to, taking them, from that or from despair really and a grind to, wow, this actually, I can make a living at this. I'm not horrible. I can actually run this, right?
Yeah, and I think too, what a lot of people that I meet and that you and I meet together are really excited about that feeling of partnership. Really, where and as you mentioned, whether it's a sign-on bonus or it's a guarantee, those are things that are prevalent in our industry. It's just part of how we attract people from time to time, how we secure them. And when a branch manager or sales leader knows that, hey, the company feels obligated really to make that investment with you, shoulder to shoulder, I think that's a game changer.
It's a huge game changer, and there's a few companies out there that say they do that. I've never seen it in motion personally anywhere I've worked, but I think it's huge. I think it's the overall. Once again, I'll go back to the sense of fairness. You and I talked early on about what a contrast it was when March and April of 22 hit. Right, every P&L in America, or 90% of them, were in the red by the end of 22. And you shared with me your response to that was, you know what, I'm going to zero everybody out so they don't got this luggage in their head, keeping them from going anything, worrying about what, how they're ever going to make money again because they've dug some sort of hole. That's the kind of thinking and leadership. I think that's why people have been here for 15 years. I mean, I don't think any company in America did that. I don't think any leader in America did that. So,
yeah, I mean, those were decisions that, although difficult, I think at the end of the day, there's also a common sense perspective. I know, you and I both know, if I've got this dark cloud looming over, and if at the company level, we have two choices. We can relieve them of that pressure, or they probably leave because they feel there's no way they're digging out of that. We felt it was better we keep them and try to help get them successful. And we've actually managed to do that in all cases.
Well, I lived the inverse of that. I told you, and I actually came to, my CEO at the time about that during that time and said, hey, look, I think we should try and help some of these folks because they're just, everyone's going to have a tolerance level. If that's 10 grand or 100 grand, at some point, they're just going to say, you know what, I'm bailing out of this. There's no way I'm digging out.
Yeah.
And you lose a lot of good people that way. I think it was a genius move to make. And, I think that says a lot about, why people have stayed here as long as they have.
Yeah. One of the things I like about what you've developed while being here is this analysis, this assessment of an opportunity. I think that too many companies don't truly understand what the investment is, which creates uncertainty for sure, but usually unkept or unmet expectations. So talk to me about your mindset on that topic.
Thesis piece. Yeah. I learned early on I've hired thousands of people, hundreds of branches, and of course lost thousands of people, hundreds of branches. It's just the nature of the mortgage business. But I do believe you have to have a strict investment thesis when you're bringing new people in. And at some point, of course, we got to play the guarantee game or the sign-on bonus, deal. Everyone else is doing it. But I think you have to, tie basis points to that, tie break evens to that. So we have a shot at, coming out of this alive as a company as well. And I think on some level, I do want somebody to make a commitment to us for the culture, for all the intangibles we're talking about, not just money. I don't think you can buy loyalty, and I don't think you can really truly buy production and be successful for very long.
Yeah, I mean, you hear people say, yeah, I know the company needs to make money and they need to be successful, but I think what we've really tried to do is create a balanced approach. Help to sort of mitigate the downside, right? Because that happens. People join, maybe they get a slow start, whatever. Volume just isn't what we anticipated. But on the other side, we want to reward you and pay up for your success. So talk to me a little bit about how you've structured some deals recently that have really taken that approach.
Yeah, where we've had deals where somebody was really looking for, we were competing really against somebody that was offering a lot more money up front, and we weren't quite comfortable with it. I wasn't, or you weren't, or both of us weren't. We have been successful leveraging the culture and saying, hey, look, we're not saying you're not worth that. Just from an investment standpoint, that doesn't make a ton of sense. So why don't we give you 60 or 70% of that up front, which is what we were comfortable with. But if you do exactly what you say you're going to do, or 80% of what you're going to do, we'll gladly pay you the rest of that. We have a team in right now where we've tied a sign-on bonus really to, let's just call it a 10th of their sign-on bonus coming with every million or so they recruit in. And they were very comfortable with saying, oh, I believe 100% I'm going to get this business in here. And I'm like, well, let's tie it together this way. And honestly, they're thriving right now. They're actually in our room right now with another branch as we sit here doing this podcast. So,
but I think to me, there's one more step to this. If somebody is willing to take that approach and accept that deal, that tells me something about them and their character.
100%.
Right? And that's the kind of people we want here at AWM. I'll give you a quick little hockey analogy. I just saw Connor McDavid, right? One of the best hockey players, maybe the best hockey player in the world, just re-signed an extension with the Edmonton team, the Oilers, for 2 years at $25 million. So $12.5 million a year, way underpaid in most people's opinion. The reason he did that, he wanted to give the team a chance to bring in other players to meet the salary cap, really to be a team player, to win.
Yeah, look, there's tons of sports analogies with that, and I think Tom Brady gave up a lot of money a lot of years to make sure he had a supporting cast that allowed him to compete for a Super Bowl every time, right? I have a problem if I get to that negotiation stage with a team and we like each other, everything's working, and it's money. I feel like if you're not willing to bet on you, why would you ask me to bet on you? Like, I think there is a give and take there. I understand they need to support their families. And to be clear, we're really talking about situations where I think you need to perpetuate someone's income for a few months so they can.
Sure. Right. Transition is important.
We're talking about it largely way and above what they need to support their families, right? And they want to be, sort of paid on future value. And neither one of us have a problem with that, but let's talk about how we can bet on that together, you betting on you and us betting on you. And I think that's a safer, better way. And I think it makes everybody feel better when you get there too. Yeah. Like every one of those deals we've done a lot of them, I'm cheering on that team. I'm there, you're there. They want to fly somebody to Vegas, they want to bring somebody in, they want us on the phone. We're supporting that effort 100%. So I think it's a great way to do it.
So before we wrap this up, okay, so anybody listening to this wants to understand how they can grow, whether it's their team, whether it's their company. Give me your number one strategy and tactic that you would deploy if you were starting from ground zero today. What is it you're going to do?
It's 4 things for us. It's leadership that starts with you. It's the fairness and transparency of the P&L and the pricing structure we have here. It is the lack of lip service as it relates to products, actually delivering products and having teams that could help people do it. And last, it's branding. It's us understanding that people are doing business with that person in that market, the local leadership in that market, the LO in that market. They're doing business with them because of them, and we are in a supportive role. We serve the people that work here. And honestly, I very rarely have to go past that. I think you've seen a lot of people we've rolled through here. I hardly ever even get to our deck if I stick to those 4 principles. And we deliver on those 4 things, I think, differently. And we think about them differently than anybody else in the country thinks about them.
Well, on that note, I think we should end it there. I couldn't say it any better myself. So Ty, thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, great.